Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a question that you, our listener, have clearly been thinking about. What really separates Cardano, ADA, and XRP?
Yeah, it's a common point of comparison.
Absolutely. And you sent us a fascinating mix of material. There's a lively Reddit discussion from our Cardano, Investopedia's breakdown of Cardano, naturally the Wikipedia pages for both Cardano and the XRP ledger, a comparison piece from Prime XBT, a quick note on scalability from Binance Square, and also a side-by-side from godx.io.
Quite the collection.
Right. So your goal, as we see it, is to really grasp the core differences, the potential upsides, and maybe the long-term prospects for both.
And our job here is to distill that, pull out the key stuff, and give some clarity without, making it too complex.
Exactly. Okay, let's dive right in then.
Well, the first thing that really jumps out looking at these sources is just how different their starting points were, their foundational goals. Investopedia mentions Cardano, founded back in 2015 by Charles Hoskinson, who, remember, was also a co-founder of Ethereum, and it launched in 2017.
Right.
His whole ambition, and Wikipedia points this out too, is to be this secure, scalable, sustainable blockchain, specifically for building dApps, decentralized applications, and smart contracts.
So it sounds like Cardano's team kind of looked at what came before, like Bitcoin and early Ethereum, and thought, okay, we need to fix some things.
That's exactly the vibe. Wikipedia talks about this research-first approach. They wanted to tackle Bitcoin's, relative slowness and maybe some of the early safety or scalability worries around Ethereum.
Makes sense.
And Investopedia even gets into the tech detail, its layered architecture. There's a settlement layer just for ADA transactions, and then a separate computation layer for the smart contracts.
Oh, interesting. So they're separated.
Yeah, and the idea, they suggest, is that this makes upgrades more flexible. You can tweak the smart contract layer without destabilizing the core transaction layer. godx.io mentions this two-layer setup too for smart contracts, dApps, and the ADA coin itself.
Right. That modular approach seems pretty smart for future-proofing.
Exactly. Now shift gears to XRP. Prime SBT says it popped up earlier, 2012, and had a very, very specific target from the get-go, shaking up international money transfers.
Okay. Much narrower focus, though.
Much narrower, yeah. It's not primarily about building a whole ecosystem like Cardano. It's targeting banks, financial institutions, anyone needing faster, cheaper, cross-border payments. Prime SBT calls it on-demand liquidity.
On-demand liquidity, right.
Wikipedia adds that the XRP ledger, also launched in 2012 by Ripple Labs, can actually support other tokens too, not just XRP. And godx.io sums it up neatly. An electronic payment system on the XRP ledger network for super fast peer-to-peer transfers.
So, yeah, fundamentally different problems they were trying to solve, different tools for the job.
Completely different starting points.
Okay, so Cardano aiming wide, platform style, XRP aiming sharp at finance. Got it. Now, something core to crypto. Decentralization. How do they snack up there? This is often a big talking point.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where we see, a pretty clear difference in perception and definitely some heated debate around XRP based on your sources. The Reddit thread under Cardano really pushes the view that Cardano is, highly decentralized.
Okay.
One user, BJ332013, flat out says it's one of the most decentralized, especially compared to Ripple. Another user, Safe B6789, points to Cardano giving holders voting rights on its constitution as proof of its strong decentralization and, resistance to being messed with. They also mention no major hacks, low fees.
Right, the governance aspect.
Exactly. And Investopedia backs this up, mentioning Cardano's roadmap includes becoming fully decentralized voting, treasury management in its Voltaire era. Wikipedia details the current setup with the three main bodies, the Foundation, IOHK, Emergo, but also flags that future goal of full community control through proposals.
Seems pretty consistent for Cardano then. What about XRP? The Reddit stuff sounds messier.
It's more complex, definitely. So while that user, BG332013, says Ripple isn't decentralized, another one, R4ID, jumps in arguing strongly that XRP is.
Okay, disagreeing voices there.
Big time. R4ID challenges the centralization claims directly. They say no single entity can freeze or reverse transactions, censor users, make more XRP, double spend, or force code updates. They even note Ripple itself only runs, 2 validators according to their check on xrpscan.com, and you need this huge 80% majority for consensus.
Okay, that's a strong counter-argument.
It is, but then you have another Redditor, AppCat, chiming in with a common concern that Ripple, the company, holds most of the XRP and plans to dump it, basically sell it off.
Ah, the supply issue.
Exactly. And Wikipedia adds crucial context here. It explains XRP transactions are validated by independent nodes, reaching consensus super fast every 3-5 seconds using this unique node list, the UNL.
UNL.
But that UNL system itself has been part of the centralization debate. Wikipedia also makes the important distinction. Ripple, the company, and the XRP ledger aren't the same thing. XRP was pre-lined, all created at once, and a huge chunk, 80 billion, was given to Ripple Labs, which releases it periodically.
So the tech might have decentralized elements needing consensus and all that.
Right. The ledger design itself prevents single-point control over freezing or creating coins.
But the issue is Ripple Labs holding so much XRP and their potential influence over which validators are trusted, the UNL. That's the core debate.
That seems to be the crux of it, yeah. The concentration of holdings and potential influence versus the technical design of the ledger.
Okay, so Cardano, clear path towards community control. XRP, ongoing, pretty vocal debate about how decentralized it truly is, mainly due to the company's role in holdings, even if the underlying tech has decentralized features. Interesting contrast. Let's talk tech then. How do they actually work?
Yeah, fundamentally different engines under the hood. Investopedia lays out Cardano's use of Ouroboros proof of stake, POS. It's known for being pretty energy efficient.
Right, POS, not POW like Bitcoin.
Exactly. Investopedia explains how users stake their ADA, basically locking it up, to help validate transactions and get rewarded. Much less energy hungry than Bitcoin's proof-of-work mining. Wikipedia dives a bit deeper into Ouroboros, how it divides time into slots and epochs.
Slots and epochs, okay.
And Codex.io confirms this too. Ouroboros POS, validators chosen mathematically, rewarded for verifying. There's a core difference affecting energy, speed, security, lots of things.
And XRP, totally different path, you said.
Completely. Prime XBT highlights XRP, uses the Ripple Protocol Consensus Algorithm, RPCA. It's built purely for speed and efficiency in confirming transactions. No traditional mining involved.
No mining, no staking like Cardano.
Nope. Codex.io confirms that no mining or staking. It runs on the Ripple Transaction Protocol, RTXP.
Okay, so Cardano, Ouroboros, proof of stake, staking involved, XRP, its own thing, RPCA, focused on just confirming transactions fast. That must impact speed and cost, which Codex.io actually compared, right?
It does, significantly. According to their data, XRP is way faster and cheaper in that comparison. They clocked it at about 4 seconds per transaction.
4 seconds, wow.
Yeah, and fees are tiny, like 0.000001 XRP. Cardano, in contrast, was around 20 seconds, with higher fees listed at 0.16 ADA.
Big difference. That really reflects XRP's focus on payments, I guess. Speed and low cost are everything there.
Absolutely nails its use case.
Which brings us nicely to use cases and adoption. Where are these actually being used?
Well, Cardano, as Investopedia notes, is really gunning for that broad ecosystem, supporting dApps, smart contracts, all sorts of blockchain solutions. They even call it like a decentralized app store, which paints a picture.
Yeah.
The big Alonzo upgrade in 2021 was key that enabled NFTs, managing different assets on Cardano. And they're still working on scaling and interoperability.
Okay, so building the infrastructure. Are there real-world examples yet?
Oh yeah, Wikipedia lists quite a few. Projects in Ethiopia for coffee supply chains and education records. Credential verification in Georgia. New Balance, using it for shoe authenticity tracking.
Huh, interesting variety.
Totally. Paul Oakenfold released an album as an NFT on Cardano. There's DeFi services since late 2021, sidechains like Midnight, NFT projects with people like Snoop Dogg, also things like World Mobile Token for remote connectivity in Africa, Zuma for AI contract creation. It's a wide net they're casting.
Definitely sounds like they're aiming for broad utility across many sectors, and XRP, sticking to its guns, mainly finance.
Exactly that. Prime XBT hammers this home. Primary use case is those fast, cheap, cross-border payments, the whole on-demand liquidity thing to replace old, slow systems like SWIFT.
Right.
Codex.io echoes it a network for banks, payment providers, corporations to track funds globally, features for invoices, payment documents.
So Cardano, build it and they will come for anything. XRP solved this one massive financial problem extremely well.
That's a pretty good summary of their approaches, yeah.
Okay, now the elephant in the room often, regulations. How have Cardano and XRP fared? What did the sources say?
Both have definitely been under the regulatory microscope, especially from the SEC in the US. Wikipedia mentions this for both. In 2023, Kraken had to stop its staking services after an SEC complaint that actually named Cardano, among others. Binance got sued too, with the SEC alleging Cardano was a security, though IOG, the Cardano developers, pushed back hard on that.
Right, I remember Robinhood briefly delisted it too.
They did, yeah. But Wikipedia notes they brought ADA trading back later that year. So some turbulence for Cardano there.
And for XRP, they had that big lawsuit with Ripple.
They did. And Wikipedia highlights a really key court ruling in July 2023. The judge said XRP, the token itself, is not a security.
Oh, that was huge news.
Massive. Though the ruling also said the way it was sold sometimes could fall under securities laws. It's nuanced. Godex.io also mentions that original SEC lawsuit against Ripple from late 2020 about the initial XRP offering being an unregistered security.
So XRP got some significant legal clarity on the token itself, even if questions remain about sales.
Seems that way. And interestingly, Wikipedia also mentions a more recent political comment, President Trump apparently announcing in March 2025 plans to potentially include XRP in some kind of U.S. strategic crypto reserve.
Wow. Okay. So both have faced heat, but XRP seems to have emerged with a clearer status for the token recently, which could be, potentially advantageous for institutional buy-in compared to Cardano still having some ambiguity.
Potentially, yes. That clarity could make a difference.
Let's switch to the market side. Performance, supply. Godex.io had some numbers, but we know crypto markets move fast.
Right. Always take specific price data with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But at the time Godex did their comparison, Ripple's XRP token price was higher than Cardano's ADA.
Okay.
XRP also had a bigger market cap overall and more 24-hour trading volume according to that snapshot. Both, importantly, have a maximum supply cap. They won't just keep printing more forever.
And didn't the Reddit discussion mention something about circulating supply?
Yeah, that was an interesting point. One user noted Cardano has a larger chunk of its total supply already out there, circulating around 80%, they said, compared to XRP.
So more of Cardano's potential max supply is already in the market than XRP's. That could affect future price dynamics, maybe?
It could, yeah. Less potential supply hitting the market later might be viewed differently by investors than a large overhang still held back, like with XRP and Ripple Labs.
Good point. Which leads us to the final bit. How do people actually view these as investments? What are the different takes?
Well, the Reddit thread really showed the spread of opinions. You had some folks seeing XRP having maybe shorter-term potential, especially if that SEC cloud fully clears.
Okay.
Others were firmly in the ADA camp for the long haul, citing the decentralization, the governance, thinking it has more fundamental long-term value. And some are like, hey, maybe both are decent bets right now.
A mix then. What about the other sources?
PrimeXBT kind of echoed the use case difference. Cardano's tech appeals to projects needing security, scalability. XRP's payment focus and bank partnerships attract the finance crowd. But they stressed, it's all speculative.
It's always important to remember.
And Godex.io basically said they're both good at what they do. XRP maybe better for quick transactions, Cardano for DeFi development. But they also warned about long-term investing being risky due to volatility. No easy answers. Really depends on your strategy.
Right. So wrapping this deep dive up, it feels like Cardano is really about building that decentralized, research-heavy, broad platform using its proof-of-stake system, Ouroboros, aiming for a whole ecosystem. While XRP is laser-focused on making cross-border payments fast and cheap for institutions using its own unique consensus, RPCA.
Very different missions.
Both have hit regulatory bumps, taken different tech routes, different adoption strategies. Hopefully this has cleared up some of the core differences and the nuances between ADA and XRP for you, our listener. Understanding those distinct goals and technologies, it's just key in this space, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. And leaves us with a pretty interesting question to chew on, doesn't it? With blockchain tech always evolving, regulations always shifting, how will Cardano's big, broad ecosystem approach fare long-term compared to XRP's very specific focus on institutional finance? Will one path prove more successful or relevant?
Yeah, and maybe thinking more personally, what parts of this actually grab you the most? Is it the decentralization aspect? Is it the raw speed and scalability? Or is it the tangible, real-world use cases? What do you think really matters most for the future of crypto? Lots to think about.